How you doing, everybody? This is Paul the Mauler Lazenby holding the world's ugliest microphone. Don't ask. And coming to you from the Broken Skull Ranch just outside of Tilden, Texas, and standing beside a gentleman who should need no introduction. International pro wrestling icon, multiple-time WWE champion, and action movie star, Mr. Steve Austin. And Steve, first and foremost, the Broken Skull Ranch, where did it get its name, and what attracted you to such a remote location?
Man, I tell you what, my in-ring career lasted, give or take, 15 years, and it's always been my dream to own a ranch, and I had to break my skull to buy this thing, so that's why I call it the Broken Skull Ranch. And it just happens to be, we're 75 miles south of San Antonio, but there's that 15-mile county road which you bounce down and you rent a car to come get here, so it's a hellacious drive, but it's in the middle of nowhere. We're trying to grow big white-tailed deer out here, and it's my favorite place in the world to be, and we're glad you can come out here and spend a few days with us.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here visiting, and let's move on to your wrestling career for a second. You've made a number of appearances recently on WWE programming, on episodes of Monday Night Raw, special guest referee at WrestleMania. Is this signaling a return to the active roster for Stone Cold Steve Austin?
No, I'm not looking to make an active return. It's just been going hand in hand with Tough Enough. Obviously, Tough Enough is, WWE programming, and happy to be on the USA Network. The show was a lot of fun for me to do, but in trying to, promote that thing and make the rounds and do what we do, a couple of appearances on Raw. And it's been a lot of fun. Every time I go back, I love to go back just because that's a big part of my life and a business that I know and love. And it's good to see, the new roster, the new guys coming up and seeing what they're doing. So it's a way to get Tough Enough out there. And don't get me wrong, they like having me on TV too, as well. And it's just a good mix. My relationship with WWE is as strong as ever. And we're in a good place. And I'm real happy for that.
All right, now this is usually an MMA slanted segment, so I want to get onto that because you're well known to be a mixed martial arts fan. You've been seen in the front row at UFC events. You even had UFC fighter Keith Jardine on a couple of your movies. What do you like about the sport of MMA, and what are your favorite fighters to watch?
I just love anything that's aggressive. I love fighting. The game of wrestling, which I came up in, and watching the sport go from just guys coming from either a wrestling ground or a striking background, and see the way they've combined everything, and with the jiu-jitsu game it's come in. The guys have taken it to such a high level now. It's just absolute insanity, and just in total respect and awe of how they train and what they do. And when I think of some of my favorite fighters, I'm a big Brock Lesnar fan, and going back from my days in WWE with him, and hopefully his recovery is going well. But I love to watch Brock fight, and I love to watch Chael Sonnen fight, and probably I like his promos as much or even better than that. But he's a tough, gritty fighter. I'm looking forward to him getting back in the octagon. And Anderson Silva, Johnny Bones Jones is a guy that just, if he keeps it all together, he's got so many good things to come for him. Just insane talent, and very innovative in what he does. GSP is one of my favorites. Kind of a class guy. He hasn't finished a lot of fights lately, but man, when it comes to just an all-around game, I look up to that guy. And I can go on and name a bunch more, but those are the kind of guys that are top of my list right now.
So let's touch on your film career as well. Now, you appeared in The Expendables with Sylvester Stallone and pretty much every other action film out of the last 20 years. You've been cranking out the action movies up in Vancouver, British Columbia. What was it like making the transition from pro wrestling superstar to action movie star?
Well, I tell you what, it's a whole different ball game. Everything that I did, pretty much in WWE was ad-lib, impromptu type thing, and just saying what was on my mind, speaking from my heart, my guts, and my brain, and business that I came up watching since I was 7 or 8. And finally when I got settled into Stone Cold, that was a character that I could be, 24/7, 365 for several years in a row. And so, it was just second nature to me. So then all of a sudden you've got memorized dialogue, and you're trying to be a different character, and I'm still figuring that out. I've been fortunate to stay as busy as I have been, but it's a different animal, and it's being in front of 20,000 people live every single night. Feeding off that energy is what I was good at, and listening to that crowd and trying to make my decisions. But all of a sudden, you get on a movie set and there's 50 or 100 people there, whatever, and I'm sitting there. Sometimes I still get in my head, and I'm trying to, get out of my head and be that character and live and breathe him. So it's been interesting. It's a lot tougher than it looks. I love challenges, and I didn't know when I got out of the game of wrestling what would be, my next endeavor. But this has given me a lot of satisfaction and a lot of challenges to try to get as good as I can be. I've got a long ways to go, but I've improved from when I first started. So the transition has been physically easy. When you don't have people running around trying to swat you in the head with a steel chair, it's not a bad day at the office. And for what it's worth, though, it's a lot tougher than I thought from a physicality standpoint. Just from the fighting. Fighting is not fighting for camera is not anything like fighting in the ring. Fighting in the ring for me is kind of like dancing. When you're fighting for camera, that's total memorization. If you slip up one time, as you well know, bad things can happen. And as I got duked in my eye as well on The Condemned. And anyway, it's challenging, but I've enjoyed everything that it's brought to me so far.
Okay, so last question. You do 80-90% of your own stunts, but there is the occasional stunt you're not allowed to do because it's a little bit too risky. For that extra 10% of the stuff, a performer was brought in who's known to be the handsomest, the manliness, the most talented stunt performer ever to walk on Canadian soil. And I'm just wondering if you ever felt overshadowed by having such a pinnacle of manliness step in and do the heavy lifting stunt-wise.
Actually, the guy's a bit of a blowhard. Sometimes I watch what he's doing and can't even believe that he's qualified.
Sorry, Steve, we're out of time. But I would like to hear the end of that, but maybe for the next interview. As it is right now, I want to thank you very much, everybody. This is Paul Lazenby wishing you happiness.
Broken Skull Ranch, and this is Stone Cold Steve Austin. This interview and your time is over. Punch you in the face.